Yeah,
Man,
yeah,
I did
yeah.
a lot of research on you and specifically on the incredible record American Silence, which, oh my gosh, what a freaking masterpiece. But I really delved into not just listening to this album, but I wanted to talk about some of the acclaim that you've gotten for this record. Not I'm not going to name any publications, but obviously
Mm.
you know what they are, and you know the acclaim you've gotten for this record, and some of the biggest publications in the world have chimed in on it. I wanted to talk really about the different genres that are represented by the acclaim that you've gotten from this. Just for a 10-minute Google search that I did, you had publications in country, blues, rhythm and blues, Americana, jazz, folk, roots, and bluegrass. Talk about
Mm.
this record. What does that mean to you, man?
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing stuff.
man, well, thank you, man. Thanks for looking that stuff up. That record was it was a record that those songs were in me, and I feel like they just did a opportunity to come out, and they were a lot of those songs were I think being worked on internally for years, even decades, and the pandemic happened, and there I am figuring out what I'm going to do. I can't tour, um, so I start teaching music at a college and online, and doing that, uh, and then there's this blistering lens on disjustice, on injustice, and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and I said to myself, okay, now is the time. Let's dig in. Let's talk about some personal stuff. Let's talk about some things that have happened with me. Let's talk about let's deal with some of this stuff now that folks are paying attention and have the time on their hands to get together and be active, and back up some of what they're saying with getting out there on the streets. Let's amplify that. Let's write a record that amplifies some of the things that I really feel like will empower folks to to try to be promote real change, uh, and be part of this congregation of humanity and liberation and empowerment and resilience, and so that's where American Silence came from. I There was that time, and I want to stress that it was this feeling I had. I was like, this is the time to write this record, and I have to do it now, and I have to record it now.
Mm-hmm.
I had to record that record. It was just me and the engineer because it was September of 2020,
Yep.
and so he was behind the glass. We had masks on going in. Everybody was kind of scared to be together, and uh, and we recorded that record and got it mixed and got it out. I think the single came out uh, in early 2021, I want to say.
What do you think?
Silence. And
What do you think created that sense of urgency for you?
I think the feeling of the feeling for me of seeing and feeling people speaking up that I hadn't seen. I hadn't felt that amount of urgency from the community, from friends, from family that I was seeing that were speaking out and speaking up. And I said, "Wow, I'm gonna try to put some more power behind this. know, I'm gonna try to share some information through songs, emotional information that will hopefully keep that spark, will keep that flame, keep that ember going.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, that was my intention with American Science, and say, don't be complacent, don't ever, and don't just because you have the time now and you're home from work, because you can't go anywhere. Don't let it be the only time in your life that you're paying this much attention to injustice,
Mhm.
paying this much attention to things like voting rights and murder that's happening, and widespread suppression campaigns. Let this be your life's work.
I love
Let's
that.
look out for each other.
I love that.
Yeah,
So courageous,
yeah.
man. And just going on Google and seeing some different studies. I wanted to mention this because and I do have a story that I'm gonna point to that Chris has told on other interviews that'll help wrap up this section. Um, Over 80% of minorities in the United States have experienced systemic racism in their lives. Over 80%. Less than 10% of white people in this country have experienced systemic racism in their lives. So that means 8 out of 10 people, according to this study, that are minority, non white people in the United States, at some point in time in their life have been in a situation that was systemic racism, whether it was a courthouse or a police officer or something within the system that was bigoted towards them. So when you start looking at those numbers and you think 8 out of 10 people have experienced it, you can literally put 10 minority people in a room and you know that there's going to be 8 stories on average that you can ask. Chris, you have that
Mm.
story, and I want you to share it with us if you don't mind. I'm referring to the time when you were 8, and of course, your mom is white and you are mixed race, and you
Uh,
asked her for money and reached into her purse, I believe, right? What happened?
yeah, that was kind of like my first realization that law enforcement saw me as some kind of threat. And I was 8, and I was my mother had gone into the bank. Um, she's standing there in line, and I got out of the car, came in. There was somebody right down the block, and I came in to grab $1 out of her purse to go get some candy. And as kids do,
Yeah, absolutely.
and yeah, and then, I knew she owed me $1 for some chores I had done, and so I I reached I reached right in there, and the security guards tackled me, an 8-year-old kid, you know, and, my mother's screaming at them, "Get your hands off of my son," and I don't think it really registered with them at first that she had said my son,
Mhm.
and this is my white mother, and, uh, and it ended up, the situation got diffused, pretty quickly, but I was on the ground, uh, tackled by, 2 security guys, and, uh, and I'm laying there and I'm realizing, "Wow, people this is how people see me standing with my mother. This is how people see me, um, when I'm alone." Uh, and it really it hit me, and a kid should not have to think
No,
about that kind of stuff
no.
at 8. But it really got my guard up in a lot of ways. Um, and I was forced to really just kind of deal with that and think about that, from then on.
Is that part
And
of this record, American Silence? That experience?
It is in a way. I do talk about different things that have happened. I specifically talk about the cross brain. I talk about being 15 and being shot at by skinheads, and
Mm,
talk about being stabbed. I talk about a lot of the different things that have happened because of the color of my skin. I talk about being arrested, a couple different times for different things um, that were not justified at all.
yeah.
Yeah, I get into it, get into some personal time stuff, but that was the first thing for me that really opened my eyes as a child. Like, you're this cute kid, people are people are, you're 8, and it's only gonna get, as you get bigger, it's only gonna get, more amplified, unfortunately, and so I had to realize that really young. Um,
This
yeah,
blows my mind, again, how anybody could perceive an 8-year-old as a threat to anybody, first of all. Like, it just, I don't care who you are, what color you are, what gender you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, come on. Um, that's
yeah,
why that's
yeah,
why God gave us a voice, man. Ask questions first. It's so simple to do. Really. I appreciate you
that's right.
letting us talk about that today, because
Sure.
the record American Silence is just as I put the word transcendental on it in my notes. That's my word. That
Mm,
didn't come from anywhere
mm,
else. It's just such a record that people should hear and listen to, and I implore people out there to search this record out and spend some time with it without any distractions. Really, 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 really deep dive into the record. I hope you guys will do that. Chris, thanks for
Thank
talking about that with me. Let's talk about the Kennedy Center, because we've been friends for a little while now, and the whole thing with the Kennedy Center. I'm not going to talk about the controversial stuff, but as a response to that, a lot of artists have had to make up their mind on whether or not to keep their scheduled performances, and a lot of artists have decided not to. Some have decided to keep them. I know from being your friend on Facebook that you flip-flopped a little bit on this, so I want to know why. First of all, I have a feeling I know why, based on watching the show and listening to the entire concert, which was phenomenal, by the way. And
you.
I think I might be wrong that you had decided not to do the show, and then you decided to do it. Is that true?
No, no, that's not true.
Okay.
No, I was always gonna do the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, my immediate response was, I did think about it, I will say that, and I did reach out to a couple people I trust to, kind of weigh a couple different opinions, with my own, but yeah, I always felt like, this is something I have to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I first want to say you started the show off by saying that you were donating proceeds to the Trevor Project, which high five, but high five to you on
Right,
that. I love that.
right.
You could almost hear the confusion from the audience, which I loved, by the way. And you also, what was the other thing that you decided to donate to that night as well? It's slipped my mind.
Yeah,
It's
United, Farm Workers
right.
Association.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they help with, they help migrant workers with legal fees and
Yeah.
do all kinds of really good stuff, yeah.
I was just like, man, I showed that to my wife. Just coming out and talking before your performance on where the money was going. And she was like, I love this guy.
Oh, right on,
So,
man,
man,
thank
I
you.
love you for that, man. If you guys don't know what the Trevor Project is, please look it up. And we support that too on this show. Big time, big time. So I was so happy to hear that come out of your lips that night. And phenomenal show, by the
Right.
way. You really made those people think, and I love that. Great stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, I said, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do a 12-song protest set,
yeah,
and raise my voice, and that was my way, some people's way was not playing, and I respect that, and, they, uh, they protested in that way,
yeah.
and, my way is showing up.
Yeah,
That's always been my way.
and I love
I
that
don't,
it was dang sure a 12-song protest, and I implore everybody to watch that as well. It's great.